What about CBD for autism in children? This issue is very close to my heart because I have a cousin who is on track to never leave his parents' home, except perhaps for an assisted care facility. His mother had tried a slew of methods to help, but nothing caused any lasting change. But then a couple of months of a fairly low dose of CBD-rich hemp extracts changed everything. He joined a basketball team, he took up music, he went off to study on his own. After all of her searching, she was amazed to see what a huge difference CBD made. It changed their lives immeasurably. And that's why I want to talk about it with you today. I'm Lex Pelger. These are the lovely CBD, THC, and PEA products of PlusCBD. On the cannabinoids, ask me anything. Today we'll start with all of the new science, including some minor cannabinoids, endocannabinoids, and a pharmaceutical gel that might help. Then a little bit of explanation on the neurochemistry of what might be happening here, and finally finishing with some practical advice. So, unlike many areas of cannabis research, there is so much evidence here. For the best of it, check out the autism page on CVResearch.info that I just finished updating with the latest findings. For instance, this study, where just 2 weeks of CBD oil improved social functioning and anxiety symptoms, as well as reduced parental stress. But this study is a much more realistic timeline. In these children with autism, 6 months of CBD-rich extracts reduced repetitive behaviors, overall anxiety, and some anxiety subtypes, including general anxiety, social, panic, and separation anxieties, as well as improvements to aggressive behavior, coping with change, and when combined with the usual treatments, a significant improvement in sleep quality. Another important finding of this study is that CBD combined well with other drugs and treatment modalities. I'm not saying that this should be your only tool. Lastly, I want to highlight this Brazilian study because it has the all-important dosage information. In these children with moderate to severe autism from the ages of 5 to 18, they're given a full spectrum extract with a ratio of 33:1 CBD to THC for an average of 6 months. The doses started at 1 milligram per kilogram, which for a typical 5-year-old is around 18 milligrams of CBD. And while they had individualized plans, the average doses end up being around 3 milligrams per kilogram, which would be 60 milligrams for a 5-year-old, which is not a small amount. As the researchers concluded, we found significant improvements in various symptomatic and non-symptomatic aspects of autism spectrum disorder with minimal untoward effects. The improvements observed included increased communication skills, improved attention and learning, more eye contact, diminished aggression and irritability, and an overall increase of quality of life for both the patient and their family. None of the caregivers reported worsening of symptoms, and at least 80% of them reported improvements in quality of life measurements. The effects were particularly strong for lessening meltdowns, temper tantrums, and aggressiveness. In addition, almost 75% of the participants reduced or halted the use of one or more medications. So that's pretty convincing, and there's a dozen more studies like that in just the last year or two. But what about safety? In this study of kids and young adults taking a 20:1 CBD to THC oil for 6 months, they measured no significant differences in the safety biomarkers measured. Now, what about alternatives? For instance, PEA, which is the endocannabinoid present in every cell of your body that is closely involved with your immune system and that we have in our relief products. Just recently, there are these 2 case reports that came out where 2 adults with autism took 600 milligrams of PEA for 4 months and experienced improved depressive symptoms and social engagement. And here's a review that suggests that PEA may help via several different mechanisms. Then there is CBDV, or CBD Varin, which is simply a minor cannabinoid that's like CBD but with a shorter tail. And brain scans of autistic adults taking CBDV saw changes to their brain's striatum to move towards a more neurotypical functionality. And you have a review suggesting CBDV for autism and epilepsy. And then on the pharmaceutical side, Zynerba has a number of studies on their CBD transdermal gel, helping with behavior, seizures, and sleep, which is pretty wild. If you put a CBD gel on the skin, it absorbs in enough to make significant differences in severe autism, which I think is pretty amazing. So, why do all these cannabinoid and cannabinoid adjacent molecules help? Well, we know that children with autism tend to have lower endocannabinoid levels circulating in their blood. Also, in both kids with autism as well as animal models of autism, they had lowered endocannabinoid signaling. and boosting their levels of 2-AG, which is one of your primary endocannabinoids, help to lower symptoms. Also, as this review points out, the endocannabinoid system helps to control the fatty lipids of your body, which makes sense because the endocannabinoids themselves are fatty lipids. And using this lipid system, they help to both lower inflammation and oxidation in the brain, both of which are hallmarks of autism. Finally, there's a strong link between autism and the gut microbiome, and this review points out how the known ability of cannabinoids to improve your gut microbiome may be part of the reason they're effective for autism. So, let's move on to our advice section. As always, for pediatric cases, find a healthcare practitioner to work with. If they refuse to work with CBD, go find one that isn't a dinosaur and send them to our science page. The most important advice for anyone beginning with any cannabinoids is start low, go slow. I would say give them just a few drops of oil with their breakfast on a Saturday morning when you don't have anywhere else to be. Make sure it agrees with them. The most common side effects to watch out for are an upset stomach, loose stools, or lethargy, sleepiness. These side effects more often tend to happen to kids with epilepsy who are using hundreds of milligrams of isolated CBD per day, but there's always some people who are sensitive to small amounts. If that amount works fine, keep using it for a week, let them get used to it, and then start to slowly up the dosage. Something like 10 to 30 milligrams per day is usually where people tend to end up, but you have studies where teens are taking 50 or 100 milligrams a day. Everyone has a different sweet spot. You do need to work to find the one that works best for you. Also, I would definitely recommend a full spectrum hemp extract over a CBD isolate. For one, all of the other minor cannabinoids and terpenes and flavonoids in the cannabis plant are helpful in their own right, and they help the CBD to work better. Especially the THC. A full spectrum hemp extract will have very minor levels of THC, the psychoactive cannabinoid in the plant. It is a microdose amount. It should not be enough to have a psychoactive effect. And there is a lot of evidence for a very small dose of THC being helpful for the brain. You can see that data collected on our ultra low dose THC page. I even suspect that a lot of the benefits that are assumed to be CBD might actually be from those microdoses of THC. Whatever the truth, studies show across many different conditions that full spectrum hemp extracts tend to work better than isolated CBD or THC. Lastly, don't stop after the first week or two. For my cousin, who was only getting 10 or 15 milligrams of CBD a day, the changes did not appear overnight. I think there was some less anxiety and aggression right away, but for the deeper changes that took place, it was a couple of months. I suspect that has to do with a rewiring of the brain and the growth of new connections between brain cells, and perhaps even the birth of new brain cells themselves, because there is a good bit of evidence for cannabinoids causing both synaptogenesis and neurogenesis, which is the birth of new brain connections and the birth of new neurons. So that takes time. If you're going to try this, I'd say buy 2 or 3 bottles and just keep going until the bottles are done. At that point, you might not see a change. There are certainly some people who are non-responders to cannabinoids. They do not work for everybody. But the evidence is clear that they are worth trying, especially with the side effects you risk being so mild. So that's why I wanted to share all this about CBD-rich hemp extracts and autism. I think they're an important tool worth exploring. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments or by reaching out directly.